episode of Let's Talk Money with Friends. Every Wednesday, we have the privilege of coming to you to speak about life, money, and everything else. We say on this show, money encompasses everything. So on today, I don't know if you know, today, this month, August, is a special month. Not only this is the month of my birthday, and I'm excited about that, but also it's the National Make-A-Will Month. August is the National Make-A-Will Month. So tonight's topic is got a will? Estate planning matters. Because it's so important because, I was reading an article online and it says that 55% of Americans are dying without a will. 55% of Americans. And I think the number is even higher in certain communities. So, two things are certain: death and taxes, right? Nobody's gonna live forever. We all remember the show Fame. I want to live forever, but unfortunately we don't get to live forever. So it's very important that we make it easier for those who are gonna be left behind. And the way we can do that is by being responsible enough to make sure that we let them know while we're alive what we would like to see, what we would like them to do once we're no longer here, but especially for those who are going to be sick or disabled, because most people, sometimes you don't die immediately, but you do become sick or disabled. So having an estate plan, especially a will, is something that a will is the minimum that everybody should have. So tonight we're going to have this awesome conversation. Got a will? Estate planning matters. The reason why we want to have this conversation again, because August is National Make-A-Will Month. So without further ado, I would like to welcome my friend who is online tonight with me. Listen, I want you to share this live with your friends, family, and everybody that you know. Because again, 55%, and I know in certain communities, including my community, more than 90% are dying without a will. And as I said, we all gonna die someday. I'm not here to scare anybody, but unfortunately, that's what it's gonna be. So therefore, in order for you to alleviate some of the stress, it is important to plan now. So without further ado, yes, please, why don't we welcome our friend, Curtis Chambers. Curtis, say hello to our guest, to our audience, and then we're gonna get into this conversation tonight.
Thank you for having me. How's everybody doing? Yes, please share. You got to share this information. Everybody has to know this. We need folks to, to get this information, because unfortunately the number is higher. 2/3 of all U.S. adults have no will. And like you said, that's just taking into account everybody. It's not even going into certain communities where it's as high as another 20% of that. So this is a very, very, very serious topic with far-reaching implications. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, in addition to not having will, but let's say like 35% of Americans who have either personally experienced or know someone who has experienced family conflict as a result of not having an estate plan or comprehensive will. It's very important to know that you don't want to leave a chaos behind. On this show, we talk about legacy matters. We talk about family matters. We talk about love matters. Trust me, having a will and doing estate planning is part of all that. So with that being said, Curtis, thank you again for being on the show. Why don't we talk about, most people, the article and everything else that I've read so far talks about, most people think a will or estate planning is for the rich. What do you think? What do you say about that?
It's actually for everyone. Everyone's going to have to go through that process, or at least everyone's going to be eligible to go through that process. And sometimes it's a situation where it's not something that's a shiny bauble. It's just a keepsake, a memento, something that you want to, give on to your charitable choice or church or what have you. And just having your wishes executed. You want someone to respect your wishes. And so it isn't just a wealthy thing. It's just that's what's given in media, popular media, because you'll see the reading of the will where they go to the big fancy boardroom. That's not a real thing. They don't do that. Yeah. It's actually a public document after the person passes. It's something that anyone can go read. You just don't really, who cares about Joe Schmo's will, even though it's a public document. Maybe if it was Michael Jackson, you want to see it, but that's a public document. It's not one of those things you just see it when it's wealthy people because of the other things that come with it. So people are associated it with only wealthy people. It's actually, in my opinion, probably more important for the average layperson.
Yeah, definitely. So will is for everyone you just mentioned, as well as estate planning, because a will is part of estate planning. So if you putting together a will, you are doing estate planning, whether you are rich or not. If you're married, right? Single, especially those who have children, right? It's very important to have that. So again, everyone, one day you were born. I was born on August 18th, many years ago. And this August 18th is gonna be a very important time for me. But guess what? One of these days, people are gonna say, oh, Gabrielle was here and she's no more. So it's very important that I have to plan, because at the end of the day, whether you're single, married, or divorced, you gotta plan for your future and plan for your family so that you can avoid all the chaos. So what is a state plan?
I mean,
Can we talk about what is a will, what is the estate plan?
sure. I mean, before I even go into the estate plan, how about what is the estate? We're using these
Yeah,
terms, and
yeah,
some people don't even know what that is. And the estate is
correct. What is the
simply,
estate?
yeah, it's everything that you own at your passing. Everything that you
Right.
own at your passing after the payment of your debts and taxes. So you own this amount, but you also have this debt and these taxes. That's what it, that's what's left over. That's your estate. You're going to have to make the decision based on, I mean, regarding the percentage or the share of the things of your estate that you wish to give to your
Correct.
beneficiaries, properties like cars, investments, heirlooms, sums of money, things of that nature. And the will is the document that provides as to who's going to receive said property, who's going to administer the estate, because someone has to be the point person, and who's going to serve as the guardian. So these are some buzzwords and terms that people should know.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned, you just saying an estate. Like we think about, oh, this person has an estate. I know I met someone one time and they say, oh, I have a house. It's like an estate because it's a huge, big house. It's worth a lot of money. But your small house down the street in the city is also an estate. Your retirement account is part of your estate. Your business, if you have a small business or a large business, it's an estate. Your life insurance policy can be part of your estate depending on how huge your estate is. Everything you have, you just mentioned heirloom, family heirloom, right? Did your mom pass her ring? Did she get married? Like, because I know people whose family members are passing on their wedding rings and other things. Like all those things, collectibles, anything that's valuable to your family. Some people have collectibles like what do you call it?
Well,
Dolls,
cards.
pods.
Those
Yeah,
stuffed
any
animals, some of those animals, the stuffed animals at one point were really, high priced. The Thai teeny babies or whatever the heck they were
yeah,
10, 20 years ago. So it could be
yeah.
anything.
I was thinking about the ring. You have a favorite ring, and every single day your children are saying, "Oh, I love this, mom." When you no longer here, pass it on to me. Guess what? You have to make sure you plan for that. So because the second you close your eyes, it's everybody's gonna want to grab, right? So it's very important to do that. So because this is National Make a Will Month, so should parents, especially parents, but anybody, have a conversation with their kids or anybody who's close to you if you don't have children about your estate plan?
Yeah, you
And
definitely want to go
if
ahead.
you have children, when is it appropriate to do so?
If they're adults, you definitely want to have that with your adult children, because you want to avoid anything. And if there's going to be any confusion, we can handle it now while I'm still here, so that you can make sure. And then, you can always reassess it. So it's not like you have to make a one-time decision and then
Yeah,
it's one and done. You want to have that decision, and then you can always look at it, because I know we're probably going to talk about this later on. How often should you look at
yeah,
this, address it, or what have you? I say annually, because
yeah.
something might change. That person might predecease, the other person. If they die before you, then obviously you got to make a change. So you want to always be thinking about that, about who do you want to. And it's not always when someone is no longer here and has gone on to glory. How about, having a guardian for while you are here? But some people want to take that responsibility off their hands. Hey, I'm 84 now. I don't even want to deal with it. Gabrielle's going to be the one signing for me. She's going to make my decision. So there's
Yeah.
other pieces of it. There's the healthcare proxy, and
Yeah, we're actually gonna go over these documents, but I also wanted to make sure mention you had said that most people don't have up to date will. Yeah, they're saying like 71.6% of Americans do not have an up to date will. So you have a will, but 71% of you have not looked at it in the last year. They're not updating it, right? So
Absolutely.
it's very important. So like if you have adult children, you should have that conversation with them, right? Saying, hey, have you ever, I know I'd mentioned that book to you, Passing the Torch, Critical Conversations with your adult children. Have you ever heard of that book?
Absolutely, and it is something that people need to take into consideration. It's not a topic that some people want to engage in, but just to take the flip side, what happens if you don't? Think about, it's known as, since we're learning new terms, if you move on without one, you're known as passing on intestate,
Yeah,
almost like interstate or intestate, and then now you got a lengthy. People can come out the woodworks, and now your children have to try to prove that they share bloodline with you. Anybody else can come in and kind of murky the waters and slow things down when they're trying to identify kinship and next of kin. So that process takes time and it's going to cost you money, and that doesn't make any sense to have the government have their hands in your money for what?
correct. And I think sometimes folks are apprehensive about having this conversation because, again, they're saying like a lack of knowledge is the reason why most people, either lack of knowledge thinking it's only for the rich, or lack of knowledge, like I don't know what to do. I cannot find a financial advisor to help me because I don't have that type of capital or asset to, a state to really have those type of conversations. But at the end of the day, you should at least have a conversation with your children about what you want to do with that house that you've had for 30 years, or what you want to do with the car that you've had for 5 years or so, because it's important to pass. The book is Passing the Torch. Passing the torch, because literally, have you seen the relay match like runs? Like you have to pass the torch to the next generation, but
Sure.
you have to have critical conversation with your adult children in order for you to do that. If you haven't had the conversation, when you're gone, that's when it gets to be very critical. Now, children, those who have kids, one of the questions that I had is, do children have a legal or moral obligation to handle their parents' estate?
I mean, you would say it's more moral. It's definitely not legal. As you think about the child and sometimes the grandchild or niece, nephew, you got different objectives. It's no one's job. It's just a matter of, do you have a good relationship with that family member? Do you
Mhm.
want to make sure that we're talking about an era where addiction issues are present, mental health is there. So if you have a grandchild who has special needs, or you have someone who may have, opioid crisis has been pervasive recently. So do I
Mhm.
want to give it to her, or do I want to give it to Gabrielle, who's going to look out for her? You get what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So these are the things that you want to do, because if not, she could be of right sound mind that day, go get her
Mhm.
share, and then she blows through it, or goes in her nose or what have you. So, how about I give it to someone who I know is going to make sure she's good and her rent's paid, get the help that she needs. So there's reasons why you want to do those things as well. But the children do not have to do anything. It's more of a moral obligation, you
Yeah.
know, opposed
But
to legal.
unfortunately, I remember, having to deal with a similar situation where they're not gonna call your neighbors, right? They're not
Right.
gonna call your business partner. They're not gonna call, if something was to happen, you're at the hospital and they're pronouncing you no longer alive. Guess what? The people they wanna have in front of them are gonna be your children. So if you have kids, so that's why you have to have that conversation. But I'm glad you mentioned it, Curtis. If your kids are not capable because they're dealing with their own issues, you definitely want to have that responsibility pass on to someone who is young enough, right? Someone young enough, maybe not. I mean, like if your husband, you guys are young, while you're young, okay, you are responsible for her estate, or she's responsible, and vice versa, depending on the dynamic of the family. Spouses, they're responsible for each other. But as you get older, it's very important to look for someone age appropriate, correct?
Absolutely. And I'll just pause real quick. We didn't say it in the beginning, and I know most people are logically thinking people, but you do want it to be said. Neither I are attorneys. It's not legal advice. This is just us
Correct.
talking about, what's going on out there. But you're absolutely correct in that. I mean, this is a time where you're already dealing in a state of trauma, right? The people are mourning, and they can get taken advantage of. There's nothing but scams going on constantly anyway, given our
Right.
economics. Just imagine, how much more so when they think there's an opportunity because someone is in a state of mourning. They're not really paying attention. They don't have access to an attorney, look over any paperwork, so what have you. and that's when things can happen. So you definitely want to already have things in place. And we didn't even get into, remember, this show is Let's Talk Money, right? So we're Let's Talk Money with friends. If your grandmother gave you a home that she bought in Roxbury in 68 or 78, imagine that she probably bought that for $20,000, $30,000. How much is it worth now? So if
Right.
she thinks she's doing you a solid, or he, by giving you this house, and you're like, oh, this is great, it's worth 800,000. Well, guess what? If you do anything and make that a taxable event, it goes capital gains. $750,000 worth of taxes, as opposed to getting a trust and make this person, an executor of it or administrator of it. So I have control of this property, but
Okay.
you didn't just give it to me and now I have to pay on something that has a higher value. So we're talking about retaining wealth and building wealth. You don't want you to just give that to me. We have to do things through the proper channels and move like how they move.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important, Curtis, that we which entrust, you say you're looking for a trustee, that responsibility is entrusted to someone who is capable of handling it. Because many times you think just because it's your kids, they're your kids, but that doesn't mean Junior knows how to handle all the estate aspect, handling an estate. So it's very important, if you have a large enough estate, or even have an estate that you want to preserve and pass on to the next generation, and you don't want to lose it as soon as you're gone. Your children and your grandkids get to experience the hard work and really enjoy it. You have to find yourself a reputable and responsible person to handle that. Because again, you just mentioned, like, there are so many hungry and con artists out there, because I've seen it. I remember somebody, the example you gave, Curtis, this young man, his mom got a house in the 1950s. He was the only child. She died, the dad died right after, right? And so he was the sole beneficiary of everything. Mom actually had a will, and he was appointed as executor of the will, right? But guess what? Because he wasn't comprehensively able to handle, there were some cases, he got sued by the nursing home. And then guess what? The court appointed an attorney, and that attorney has depleted his estate.
It happens all the time.
Attorneys are great people. I work with attorneys. I have a lot of respect for them. But also, just like with any profession, that's why we do business ethics everywhere you go. Business ethics, every profession you go. When you don't know and you haven't prepared properly, you will be a victim, right?
Exactly. It's not a cast of aspersions on the industry of law, the profession of being a lawyer. It's just to say that you open yourself up to that, right? Whether if I know when I got my car and I got everything situated, then no mechanic can get me. That is not the cast aspersions on all the mechanics, but it happens. So you want to try to minimize your vulnerability and your exposure. That's why you do something like that. And it's important to know, exactly what's what and who's who, because if you have if anything, I'm advocating use of an attorney on the front end so that's not reactive, because sometimes you don't even know. Me and you are listed on the bank account. Is it a joint bank account, or is it just that you're listed on there so that you can pay some bills? There's a difference. And so when the time comes and the person goes away, then you're not able to even do anything on that account. You're thinking, wait, I'm on that account. No, you were there just to pay some bills. You had a limited access to that. Was it a joint account? Same thing when it's a house and is a joint rights of survivorship. They call it like JTWROS, whatever. It's joint, a joint tenant. And it's weird because the math doesn't work. Me and you are married and we have this house. It's going to say not 50-50 on the house. It's actually 100-100, which is weird because there's only one house. How can there be 200%? It just means that, somebody predeceases someone else. You are 100% owner. You're not a 50% owner or what have you. So these are the things that people don't know about or don't even speak on. So that's why you need to have access to an attorney. That's why you need to have a team. Who's on your team in your family and who's on your team in terms of your CPA, your attorney, things of that nature, your accountant.
Yeah, before we go into the type of documentations, the documents that you're going to need for an estate planning, I mean, you could need a lot more than that, many more documents than that, but we're going to go over some of the basic ones. But I just love the fact that we just want to reiterate again, if you're watching the show now or in the future, we just want to let you know that it is important that you could have an estate plan. It is important, even more so, that you have a will, because this month, August, is Make a Will month. August. It's very important that you have conversations with your adult children. Now, if you're married, you're still young, you could have the conversation with your spouse, and you each could be responsible for each other. However, as you get older, it's very important that you think about who else in my lineage, who else, my children, my niece, my attorney that I've had for years, who is responsible to handle my estate? Because again, you don't want to work after all the years of hard work and accumulating asset and then be gone, and then the asset is gone overnight because the person that you gave that responsibility to doesn't know, or you did not plan to have that happen. Because again, you want your wish, right? You want to be able to speak from death. While you're gone, your paperwork, the paperwork that you put together is speaking for you, correct, Curtis? So why don't we talk about the paperwork? So what are some of the documentations? We just mentioned the will. Can we define that? You know, like you've already mentioned some of that. What are some of the documentations that you should have as part of your estate? We just mentioned will is number one.
Absolutely. So some people will look into having, 3 or 4 of these things, which is a healthcare power of attorney, right? That's a legal document that appoints a person the authority to make healthcare decisions on another person's behalf. So that person is still here, still breathing, right? But they may not be, they may be incapacitated or not of a sound mind to make these decisions. So you have a healthcare power of attorney, or you can have a physician's, a doctor's directive, which is known as a living will, a living document containing instructions for the doctor, for the physicians, regarding your life support preferences. Do I pull the plug? Do I not? Because we're not sure. Some people are like, well, I don't want to be in a vegetative state. Don't have me like that. So here's, it's already written out there as well. And the one that we dabbled into, but we didn't get into specifically, is the trust. Because that's something that more people are using. When it comes to home ownership. I have a colleague that she has a home in Mattapan, very lovely home, and she did a trust for herself and for her husband, right? So it's because you never know who's going to predecede who. So that trust is the situation that we talked about, where someone can be administrator of it, of whatever whatever the trustee has, but it's not like a will. So each thing performs its own function, but you have them all together, then you're ironclad. It's not to say one's better than the other. I think these things go hand in hand.
Yeah. So we had mentioned the will, and earlier during the show, you mentioned that if you have children and you want to appoint a guardian, the will, that's why you would do that. So if you have minor kids, especially as a young couple, you have minor kids, you want to have a will, because God forbid you and your husband, it has happened many times. You go on a vacation or you're driving down the street, something happens and you both are no longer here and you need someone, or you're here but you're no longer able to take care of your child, you or children, you want someone appointed. And it's very important that conversation, again, going back to conversation with your children, you needed to have had a conversation with someone, right? To say, hey, my sister, if something were to happen to me, my minor kids will be your responsibilities, right? Or
Yep.
hey, my friend, my best friend, or vice versa. Because I know a young lady who passed away, she was a single mom and the dad wasn't involved, and she passed away at a very young age. Her sister ended up having to take on that responsibility of taking care of her son. So it's very important that you understand the will is not just only for the rich. If you have children, for even that factor alone, having kids, you need to have a will so that they know where they're going to end it up if something happens to you. It's very important. And you had mentioned the power of attorney. I know there's the financial and the healthcare proxy, or the healthcare power of attorney. Yeah, I mean, like I remember somebody I know, a family member was at the hospital, but guess what? While you are recuperating at the hospital and you're taking care of your ailment, right? You're taking care of your health. Guess what? Your mortgage company is not gonna wait for you, right?
Okay.
If you have kids in private school, they're not gonna wait for you. The bank is not gonna give anybody access who's not on the account.
It's not there. And this is why people, go into certain revocable trust or irrevocable trust. If it depends on your plan. This is why you have to have these conversations with the right people that are experts in their field, because revocable trust is great because you can retain certain rights. I'm still here breathing, sound mind and body. I retain control of the assets in there. I could even choose to stop it or revoke it entirely, but things change. You remarry or you have stepchildren or what have you, and you might just say, you know what, I want to make some changes. But if you're talking about long-term care spending, or because it doesn't protect you, the revocable doesn't protect your assets against certain creditors. Don't forget, people are going to be coming for you. Hey, he owes me. Hey, she owes me. So a revocable doesn't have as many protections. You might want to look at an irrevocable trust if you're looking at other long-term care spending concerns or what have you. So again,
Right.
these are the things that we want to at least start having the topic.
Yeah, I've heard some of the apprehensions. I've heard, trust is too expensive and stuff like that. So it's good, like if you are able to put all your assets in a bucket. That's what a trust is. You create this bucket, legal bucket, and you put all your assets, right? Your house, your retirement, you name it, in that bucket. However, if you feel like your estate is not big enough, and you may not want to spend the money in holding on to a trust, there are certain things you can do. Like we just mentioned, the power of attorney, having that document available so that if something were to happen to you, still alive, but you're at the hospital, you cannot walk to the bank because you don't have the health to do that. You could give someone the power of attorney, the right legally to go to the bank with that piece of paper and say, oh, I'm here to represent Gabrielle because I'm her power of attorney at the bank. At the hospital as well, I'm here to represent Gabrielle because she had said to me, if something were to happen to her, I get to make all the medical decisions. And that's very important to have that power of attorney, right? That healthcare directive, right?
Absolutely. And it's funny because we're live and someone, said something, and typically I wait till afterwards to see the replays. Yeah. Someone just hit me up and was speaking about this. So I'm glad, giving a shout out to my buddy Larry, who is an insurance professional and knows all about this topic as well. He was saying that price is a detriment or deterrent, a hurdle, so to speak. And he's correct. And of course, we were going to go there as well. But a lot of times people will say, I don't have the money. And so the thing about it is our clients, his and ours, have access to 25% off because of the relationships and the organizations that we're connected with. So I try to remove that as a barrier. And hey, I can't get it for free. Wish I could. But hey, if you know that you were going to get it and it was going to typically be $2,000, or $1,400, $1,500 to do, that trust or what have you, and to know that you can get $400 or $500 off of that, then I think that's something that's more viable. So, when it comes to point, you're looking at $1,000, sometimes for certain wills or what have you. And I do have certain aspects for some of my clients that can get it, heavily discounted as well. And so I don't, I'm not going to promote on this show, but when they connect with me, I do have the proper protocols to get them these things much cheaper than.
So we're talking about some of the basic documents that you need to have: a will, power of attorney, healthcare proxy. You talked about the revocable and irrevocable trust. When you take out revocable, you can change it. Irrevocable, you cannot change it. So there are different types of tax consequences. I studied taxation. I always tell people, consult with your tax professionals, because at the end of the day, you want to know exactly what you're doing and how what it's going to cost you. It's very important to do that. But other documents, since we're talking about estate planning today, and we'll go into some of the ways you can get these things at deep discounts. Other documents, I know it's 7:30, but I just want to have this conversation with you, Curtis, because I know we just mentioned the idea of having all these documents. But if you are someone who's trying to leave a legacy, how important it is for you to also write letters to your kids, maybe like do videos, that's more important, or recipe books. And I know telling your children stories, because I know I'm very loquacious and I'm very inquisitive. So I'm always asking my mother, tell me about your life. Tell me about how you grew up. Who was your best friend? Like, I feel like I know a lot about her. But you'll be surprised how many people don't thinking like my parents didn't have a life before I was born. So I'm not interested in that. How important is that? Because I know part of, you and I are both believers, and the Bible has talked about like A wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. But I do believe the inheritance is not just money. It's more than that. It's not just a house. It's more than that. Why is it important to also sit down and let them know about who you are, what you've been, who you've been, and also what you're looking forward to seeing them be in the future and
It's,
beyond.
it's a great question, and it's an awesome speaking point, because a pivotal transitional point, because when you say that that treasure, that inheritance, it is not just financial. I thought of my grandmother, and when we would talk about, she's our family from Jamaica and Barbados, and they eventually went to Central America and Panama to have a better way, make some extra money because there was work there on the canal. And I heard about barnstorming. I heard about Negro League players, baseball. And me and my grandmother, that was our connection, was through baseball. And so when I could hear those stories, some of them you're not going to get on YouTube, Wikipedia, wherever, because whoever's the dominant person in the culture is going to tell the story their way. And so you may get things that are washed out of history entirely or altered beyond recognition. But when you can have that mouth to mouth, that verbal, word of mouth type of lineage, that's what the indigenous people did. It was always sit down and share their history that way, as opposed to just, written down or what have you. So just imagine, that if she was born in 1918, then she's connected to someone from the 1800s, people with stories or what have you. So just one person removed, I'm connected to the 17 and 1800s. That's powerful. You can't get certain things like that. And the imagery and the way their face will light up when they tell you about this player or that situation, you just can't replicate that. And so this is the type of thing that you could do, like you said, with a video log, or whether it's a handwritten note, something, getting a portrait, a painting, or whatever, certain things that you can do to get people to feel better. Because I remember I watched the movie Juice, Tupac, one of his iconic roles, he said, I'm not nothing. And I'm not going to say the real words. And he said, I'm not nothing. You're not anything. And so that's the thing about it. When we don't think you're anything, then you're more likely to do something that's crazy, or not, don't care about anybody else. But when you do see yourself as that king, when you do see your lineage and you get to see whose you are and who you are, you'll act accordingly. And that's how you elevate as a people. So when someone tells you, look where you came from, this is who you are, this is your grandfather, this is your grandmother, that's, empowering right there.
It's very empowering. And that's why, again, having that conversation, talking to your children, raising them up in the way they should go, because at the end of the day, many times your children are not equipped to take on that torch, to pick up that torch. Like when you passing on that torch, they're not the baton, the torch, you name it, they're not willing and they're not able, because you have not done the work. I'm not here to parent any, this is not parenting 101, but I know when you've sensitized your kids and taught them about who you've been and where you come from, where you came from, and what you're all about, and what you would like to see for them in the future. Let me tell you, it does change their lives, and it does make a difference in who they become. So it's very important that we take the time not only to talk about the estate plan, because if you're having conversations, if you're always having conversation with your family, it's very easy to say, hey, honey, I want to have this particular conversation with you today. I wanna discuss this important issue with you today. But if you're not having conversations, it's really hard to get going with the importance of talking about your estate and planning for your estate. So we did talk about, the importance of reviewing your plan. Once you've decided to do one and you've put one together, it's important to review it, right? And can we talk a little about some of the easy documents that we should at least be reviewing every year, so that we can at least create some peace of mind when we are gone?
Yeah, the will is something that you definitely want to review annually. The trust could be even more frequent. The will at least annually, and the other things may not be as frequent, but I would say just to keep it uniform, take a look at all four of those things: the trust, the living will, healthcare power of attorney, and the will on an annual basis, just so to make sure that everything's the way you want it to be, and that you have copies of them in multiple places, because fires happen, floods happen. It was a crazy rainy season this year. I had someone in my family had the basement level, really flooded, a few inches thick. So just imagine if something got lost. So keep copies in different places and make sure that, things have not changed for the people that you entrusted with this major momentous thing in your life. So if you have to make a change, then you make a change. If you're no longer, you know, on the great terms with this person, or this person has passed on, you got to make sure, because I'm telling you, you go into probate and it could be a hard, long battle, be a dogfight. People come out the woodworks and all these exes and stepchildren. And I'm not saying you don't want to take care of who you want to take care of, but you don't want people trying to claim, hey, speak now, forever hold your peace. Well, that's what there's going to be an opportunity, and it takes months and sometimes a few years. So you can just fix it by being proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, you remember recently, well, a couple of years ago, I believe, Aretha Franklin, one of the well-known singers, she passed away, and she had not updated legally her will, and it took a while. I mean, it took a couple of years to go back and forth. Litigation. It was very expensive because lawyers are gonna be charging a high fee to help you figure it out. So it's very important that you keep it up to date. And we had mentioned offline that there are certain things that you could even protect and make easy for your family, like your accounts. You had mentioned if you have an account and you're a single person, and your bank allows you to have pay on death, which is POD, which is an opportunity for you to immediately pass on that account balance to somebody so that they could avoid going through the probate system. Do that. Your life insurance, do that. Make sure be sure to have someone designated as a beneficiary, primary, secondary. And also too, you had mentioned if someone predeceased you, it's very important that if you just lost your spouse and he was the beneficiary of your life insurance policy, that you go and change that and have your children or family member that you care about, or whatever it is, or your wife, vice versa. If you've gone through a divorce, right? Again, there are so many things that you have to think about to make sure. But procrastination, right, is the reason why so many people have not done, right? Tomorrow never comes, right? Not only a lack of knowledge, but also procrastination. Many of them do know what they need to do because they see little junior running around, and every time they see little junior, they say, oh, if something were to happen to me, I went to work and I didn't come back, what would happen to little junior? Oh, I need to have a will to let my sister know that she's the one. But guess what? They haven't done it. So what do you say to someone right now who's watching and saying, like, I've been thinking about these things. Yes, I have an estate that I should at least do certain things as minimal as having a will, look at my life insurance, make sure my account has a POD or like a beneficiary set up. It's minimal stuff. In addition to all the bigger, the more complicated documents like a trust, and things like that. What would you say to that person right now who's procrastinating?
I try to, extend grace. I really do.
Yeah.
If it's a client of mine, it's like a prerequisite. We're going to do this. We're going to get these things done because this is part of what you're coming to me for. Because I don't want you to be mad at me from the other side and come haunt me when your family passes the hat for the GoFundMe and I scroll right on by. So, and we share a laugh about that or whatever, because I let it be known that, lack of preparation on your behalf does not constitute an emergency on mine. So, with that being said, if you're going to use those biblical principles like you're talking about, and for children's children and things of that nature, then this is part of it. If it's uncomfortable, let's be uncomfortable for a little while, and then let's get this done, because it's going to be a lot longer time frame of discomfort if you don't. So, it is a conversation. It isn't easy to get change behavior when it comes to money and trauma and things of that nature. So, it's gotta be kid gloves, so to speak. But it's not something I'm going to shy away from because it's super important. Get your insurance done. And people will pass you by all the time and act like they don't know that you do this for a living. And we just got to get past certain things because we know that us as a people, sometimes they don't want to they don't want to do something, Renee, Gabrielle, if they think that you're making $1. You know what I'm saying? So let's get beyond that. Exactly. And so I can show you as your financial coach where you're already paying that, because right now just the credit card debt that you already have is increased, right? Because the interest rates have gone up. They looks like they're going to continue for a little while. So I already know you have the money. You're just giving in these other places. So once I show you, how to, minimize this, and Disney Plus is getting ready to go up to $13.99. So if you're going to keep doing those things and you don't want to do this, I can't force you, right? I'm not your financial advisor. This is a coach. Coach can tell you the play. You're going to go execute the play you want to run. It is what it is at that point. But I'm just going to, continue to be steadfast in my messaging or what have you, because here's the importance. And I can show you what it could look like and what it would look like if you don't. So that's where I leave it.
Yeah. On this show, we have said community matters. It's so important that you go and find a community that could help you think about these things and have a conversation. I believe Let's Talk Money with Friends is the community for you. We've encouraged people to tune in, share this live with their friends and family so that they can at least start thinking about these things. Listen, I've had deaths in my family where people fights, the fights that we ended up having to deal with because folks did not plan properly. You don't want to pass away and then have everything that you have goes to one person. Everything goes to one person. Why? Because you did not take the time to say, if something were to happen to me, I want my mother to have a little piece of the pie. If something were to happen to me, I want my brothers to have a little piece of the pie. I've seen it happen because people are very greedy by nature. Once they have access to that money and it's saying legally that it's theirs, guess what? No negotiation. There's not going to be any negotiation because they're going to run off with that money. It's very important that we understand that this is planning, this is having conversation, and this is being part of community, and this is being responsible, right, Curtis? And I know you have a great community where you coach families who are interested in planning properly so that they don't leave a chaos behind, but they leave a legacy that goes on, a legacy that is prosperous, a legacy where the children are left behind, thinking my parents were responsible adults and they did the right thing. So how do you work with families before we hang up here? I just want to say, do you have a website? Is there a way for them to reach you? An email address? How do you work with families who are interested, saying like, listen, I need to plan and I would like to have someone who could guide me and kind of point me to the right direction,
Sure.
in the right direction? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Great question. And I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on this platform. It's CLC Consulting, CLC consulting.org.
All right.
And the email address is info@clcconsulting.org. Instagram, CLC Consulting 13. So, this is where you can start to find your tribe, start to find, the Thursday night group that I did called Growth Thursdays with Empress, co-facilitating. This is what we do because we want to have people have their tribe, because it's hard doing this by yourself. And if you have people that are stuck in their ways, the law of association is very real. The law of gravity is real. If we jump off the building, you don't have to believe in gravity. The good news or the bad news is gravity believes in you. So the law of gravity is real, and so is the law of association. You don't see one Einstein hanging around 9 dummies. That just doesn't, not how it works. No. You have to find your tribe. Sometimes your tribe can be in person if you can find some people to be with. Sometimes it's going to have to be digital because you got the audio books or, YouTube University or your TED Talks or whatever. So your tribe can come digitally or it can come in human form. Obviously, it's great when you can hug and hold and high five and get with your tribe that way, but you can't keep hanging with the same people because if you can't change those people, you just have to change the people that you're around. So
you cannot live in isolation either. Nobody knows everything. It's very important that you come out. Let's Talk Money with Friends is a great resource for you, where you can come out every week. You get to hear information about life, money, and everything else. I would encourage you to tag, share, let your friends know that we are talking about relevant and timely topics. Listen, if you've never had this happen to your family, good for you. But the studies have shown that at least 35% of us have had this experience where somebody passed away without a will, and then the fights, the arguments, and long-term animosity, for life. People have fallen apart. Families have fallen apart because of a lack of discipline and a lack of planning. We don't want that to happen. I was mentioning to you that I read this book. I couldn't stop reading it. This man that I'm like, wow, what a human being, right? Here forever. And it's so funny, it's ironic, here forever. You can be here forever, especially if you plan properly and you treat people right while you're alive. But when you treat them right, even after you're gone, oh my gosh, they'll remember you for life. Here forever, be here forever. Do everything that you can to make sure that you plan properly, because legacy matters, community matters, family matters, and estate planning matters. Got a will? If you don't have one, you need to get one today. Very important. So with that being said, we just want to say thank you again for being on the show, Curtis. Thank you. I hope and pray that those who are watching will be reaching out to you, because again, this month here, August, is a beautiful month. I love August because it's my birthday and I'm ready to celebrate. But guess what? August, it's also the month. It's make a will month. If you don't have a will, do it this month. The month just started. Today's the 9th. Listen, call someone, call Curtis, definitely. Call you if you have an attorney, call your attorney. Talk to your children and say, you know what, honey, we need to get this done, because I just heard it from Gabrielle and Curtis, and they're saying that the most responsible thing I can do is plan. Is plan for you and plan for our future. So anything else, Curtis? I just want to say goodbye to everyone.
Absolutely. It's a will versus won't. Make a will, because I won't be contributing to your GoFundMe. And with that, I thank you and I appreciate you for having me.
Yes, thank you very much. Oh, folks, I won't be here next week and for the next couple of weeks, but I would like to say there will be plenty of content on the online for you to kind of review. It's very important that you keep on watching, follow, and share. Social media is very powerful. You talked about university, YouTube University. I feel like on this show here, oh my gosh, everything that we're giving you is things that have been given to us. You know, expensive training that we are giving and we are sharing at no cost, no cost. So if you are watching this show today and you ended up being one of those people who died without a will, then definitely you would have wasted this information. So we don't want that to happen. So please, thank you very much for your time. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Have a blessed night and have a blessed week.